Eros Meets Agape is a bi-weekly heart-to-heart conversation about love, sex, marriage, and relationships. Everyone wants to love and be loved, but everyone does not know how to give and receive the love they both want and need. Intimacy and passion are essential, yet mean nothing if there isn't unconditional and sacrificial love, which is the foundation for any lasting relationship. Dr. Saudia is a licensed marriage and family therapist and minister. Let's listen in as she shares how to create healthier and happier relationships.
Hey there, family. That's right. It is time for another episode of the Eros Meets Agape podcast. And I am going to ask you an important question. If someone were to ask you, what is your couple type? Would you even know what they were talking about? Or do you know, but maybe you don't like what your couple type is and you need a refresher so you can figure out what's the best direction to go? Well, you got to know what your type is. That's going to help you to show up and show the way in which you communicate when things are not going as great as you want. So let's head on over into the classroom. Let's talk more about what your couple type is, and I'll give you great information that will be helpful for you moving forward with they. I will see you in a second. Hey there, everybody. That's right. It is me, your host, Dr. Saudia with the Eros Meets Agape podcast, and I am here yet again for another episode where today we'll be talking about what's your type. And here we're actually talking about the 5 couple types that exist. And it's really about how you address fighting or what is really your pattern of fighting. I'm going to identify what those 5 types look like, what it means, and how to navigate your way out of one area, hopefully to migrate into the area that would be the healthiest for you and they. But before we get started, I have to remind you all, this upcoming October on the 22nd from 8 p.m. to 11 p.m., I will be hosting the Eros Meets Agape Bring Your Own Bestie event. And it's not something that you want to miss. I'm not just saying it because it's my event, but the Black and Bling event lets you know what the vibe will be. So come with your best black, come with your best bling. And then on top of that, bring your bestie. Now, bestie can be broadly defined here, folks. It can be your best friend. It can be one of your closest friends. Because let's just face it, as we become adults, we no longer have that one person that we identify as besties. We may have a number of close girlfriends that we just want to celebrate. So bring a bestie. Come to the Black and Bling, Bring Your Own Bestie event. It's going to be a great night. People have been asking me, what will this event entail? So let me give you a quick description. It's really just going to be a night of fun celebrating you and your best friend, whether that's you and your mom, you and your adult daughter, you and your close friend, or you and your real life full-time bestie. However you identify it, it's really a night of uplifting women. This is the decade and the time where the Black woman is on the rise. And I say that not being biased, but simply because who is valuing our dollar more than anyone else? Yep, that's right. The whole world, they want us. They want our data because we have speaking power and we hold great importance. And of course, we hold great importance with our society. But how often do we celebrate one another? Sure, we may give a head nod or you go polka dots when we see a fabulous outfit. Whatever that may be, it's time to actually spend a little time with you and your close friend, celebrating one another, uplifting one another in a positive, fun-filled environment. At the event, we're going to have fun, interactive games. And if you know me, that means we are going to have some type of competition. So that's right. We are going to have competition with best friends against best friends. And we're going to have some great enjoyment of laughter in this competition, fun-spirited, lighthearted event. It's going to be a great night, like I said, uplifting one another. So nothing that's going to be downgrading to anyone, but most definitely something that is going to uplift everyone. With that being said, you're going to also have great food, entertainment, and it's not an event, in my opinion, if you don't walk away with a great and lovely partying gift. And of course, some prizes along the way. So with that being said, I love to see you at the first annual Eros Meets Agape, Black and Bling, and this year's theme, Bring Your Own Bestie. Hope to see you all there again on October the 22nd from 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. at the 1111 studio on 12 Mile in Middlebelt. Can't wait to see you. And of course, I can't wait to celebrate with me and my besties. With that being said, let's go ahead and dive into today's topic. So we're talking about couple type. What does it mean and what does it look like? So to start off, there are 5 couple types. And within these 5 couple types, it gives us a clear indication as to how we handle conflict within our relationship. Now, we already know some people really do very well with conflict, meaning that it's not off-putting to them, it's not scary or terrifying to them, but it is an opportunity for them to express how they are seeing a situation, experiencing and feeling a situation, and explaining that to the person that they love, right? But how we go about doing that varies. On the light end, we can do it very well, and we are hoping that everyone does that, but we know that that's not the case. And on the other end of that spectrum are those that do not do it well at all, and it could be for a number of reasons. So let's dive in, and hopefully you'll see yourself and you'll have an opportunity to have a greater understanding as to what's taking place behind the scenes. So I'm going to work my way from the bottom up, right? We always like to, just to say, end on a high note. So I'm going to share with you, let me just say, in my opinion, the lowest 2, and different people will have different perspectives, and I'll identify that. So these 2, in my opinion, are the least favorite, the ones you definitely do not want to experience in your relationship. These are the hostile couple types. So the first hostile couple, basically, these people are what we identify as validators, which means when you are a validator, in essence, you are communicating to your partner where you are somewhat communicating your feelings, but you are doing it with high levels of defensiveness on both parties, in fact. So in essence, you are interacting in a way that is very calm, just like a validator. And I'll explain what a validator is. But you are communicating in a way that is very calm and with ease. You somewhat express yourself, but it's mostly neutral. And in essence, it's as if, you know, in many ways, there seems to be this intermediate between, you know, being on the high end, which is avoiding your partner, and then, you know, being, you know, back and forth in your level of passion with this person in a good way as well as a negative way. So you really spend a lot of time, in essence, being on the defense with one another. When you're on the defense with one another, there's a lot of criticism that takes place. And when there's criticism, you tend to hear phrases such as you always or you never, because, you know, they're clumping everything together. And in essence, if I'm being honest, whining about it in a way. So during this conflict, each person reiterates their own perspective, never really listening to the other person. So I'm, in essence, in a way, I am presenting my conversation with my partner, but I'm doing so in the aspect whereas I am spending more of my time criticizing this other person, but defending myself. But why does this take place? It takes place because I fear intimacy. So because I fear intimacy, there's going to be fighting because I'm feeling as if I'm being neglected, or I'm feeling as if, you know, my partner is not spending time with me, not hearing me, not understanding me. Whatever the case and what they are experiencing, they respond in a way that is criticizing to this other person, but they also feel like they're being attacked. And if I feel as if I'm being attacked, I'm going to respond in a way that causes me to defend myself, so therefore I can protect myself. But if I'm always defending myself and criticizing this other person, well, that means I'm not really hearing them. And it's a lot of conflict where you're never really looking at this other person's perspective. Therefore, you're not supporting them. You are not understanding them, or seeming to not understand or try to understand them or their point of view. So over time, you build up contempt towards this person. And over time, as this contempt builds, as this hostility builds, as this defensiveness builds, and all what's happening, you're basically headed to a place where you all won't be together. Because over time, if I really feel as if this person can never be there for me, love me, support me, understand me, get me, then I'm going to believe this is not the place for me because it is unhealthy and it doesn't make me feel good. Overall, you're not communicating your feelings in these types of relationships, because if I'm spending all of my time defending myself, then guess what I'm doing? I'm spending all of my time looking at me and never really hearing the other person. And if I'm never hearing the other person, tell me this, how are they ever going to feel heard and understood? So over time, it causes the individual to leave. Now, the other hostile couple, we identify them as hostile detached. So what does that mean? These couples, in essence, look at them like they're two armies that are pitted against each other, and they're in this standoff where we're against one another, fighting against one another, and one of us is going to win and one of us are going to lose. So they'll snipe at each other during times of conflict, or there'll be this detachment that takes place over time with them. Whereas in essence, I'm removing my closeness from you. I'm resigning myself from this situation, from this person, from this relationship, but I'm doing so in a way that still gives the impression that I want to be there, because I haven't physically left, but I presented myself that it looks as if I've left. So now, what does that mean overall, or what does that look like? It means that over time, you're going to decide to leave this relationship because there's no regulation or positivity. If there's only contempt, which basically means yelling, arguing, screaming, throwing, fighting, pushing, things of that nature, over time, I'm going to want to leave this negative, toxic relationship. And the difference between the hostile detached and the hostile couple is that at least with the hostile couple, they learned how to regulate their negativity, meaning we know how to keep it even in a way, whereas it doesn't go too high. You know, we're going to discuss some criticism. Well, I don't like the way you do such and such, and I don't like the way that blank, blank, blank. Right? It doesn't get too high because I'm criticizing you, your person, your character, but I'm not name calling. I'm not insulting or belittling, which is what takes place with the hostile detached couple. I'm hoping you all are not the hostile detached couple, but if you are, what's going to happen? The relationship will generally over time end because you do not communicate healthily. And over time, I'm going to want to stop hurting, which is the reason why I would choose to leave that type of relationship, because it's just not healthy, nor is it beneficial for me, because in essence, there is no closeness that is taking place. So those are the two that are, in my opinion, are the lowest. Now, some people will say that this couple that I'm getting ready to identify is the worst, all right? And this is the conflict avoiders. So why would someone say that they're the worst as compared to the two that I just identified, the hostile and the hostile detached? Conflict avoider is pretty self-explanatory. These people avoid conflict. They avoid expressing what they need from one another, and they congratulate the fact that their relationship is generally happy. And I say generally happily involved or invested in this relationship. I say that very loosely. Here's why. The bad thing is that they're not expressing their needs. So if I never really tell you what I need, then can I really say I'm generally happy? I probably can't, because you're not addressing my needs. So how are those needs being met? Is it me? Is it someone else? Or are they totally just being dismissed? And over time, I build resentment up. Conflict avoiders will minimize persuasion attempts and instead emphasize the areas of common ground. So I don't want to rock the boat if I'm a conflict avoider. I'm going to withdraw from any situation that looks like or may cause any type of conflict to arise. Now, an important aspect about this conflict avoiding couple is in the balance that they have between independence and interdependence. Independence meaning I'm okay with being on my own, aloneness, right? And interdependence means this intimacy that we have developed between the two of us. They're able to balance those two, and they also have clear boundaries with one another. They're able to separate, their person with their interests, which is great, which is why they get along very well. But when they don't get along, because they don't know how to express their needs, or they spend time avoiding expressing what it is that they need from one another, they're not really being fully fulfilled in this relationship. So if I never really have my needs met, then eventually I will, in essence, I want to say shut down, but that really isn't the right word. It's sort of like you just kind of fade away. These are the couples that, years later, they're together still. They don't have anything really bad to say about one another, but in the same sense, they don't really have a lot of close connection or great things to say about one another because they're so fearful of rocking the boat. They don't want to mess things up that they totally avoid all of that. And that's simply because they dislike conflict. And as a result, they avoid any area that does not promote congruency or agreement between the two. And they simply don't know how, and it's an uncomfortable experience for them. So they avoid that at all costs. All right. Those are the conflict avoiders. Now, the fourth one, some people will identify as pretty good because when I explain it, it's going to sound real hype, right? But we're not there just yet. So it's very close to being the couple that type that we want to be, but we're not there yet. This couple is called the volatile couple. Now, the name alone seems to give the impression or the illusion that things are not going well. And in some cases, that could very well be true because this type of couple, they are very emotional. They are extremely competitive, and they are, in essence, very great at identifying respect, integrity, as well as humor and goodwill in their relationship. But baby, when things go awry, whoo, it's bad, okay? So they are almost the exact opposite of conflict avoiders, meaning that the volatile couple is very intensely emotional. Conflict avoiders are not. They will be the couple that you can tell they're together, you can tell they're a couple, but you can't see any love really between conflict avoiders. It may appear as if they have great outside appearances to the world, but you don't really see them being, over happy with one another, or you don't really see them with this sense of passion and love towards one another. But that volatile couple, they're different. They're very intense in their emotion, and they have the ability that when they begin with their conversation, they move right into persuasion immediately, and they stick to it throughout the entire discussion. So the entire discussion where they're in a way competing with their partner, they're debating with them. But guess what? They do so in a way that is healthy, not negative or oppressive. They do it in a way where it's characterized by a lot of laughter, a lot of shared amusement, and a lot of humor. These couples really seem to love to debate and argue, no doubt. But the good thing about this is that even though they love to debate with one another, and you will look at them and they'll be very passionate in this debate, but guess what? They're not going to be disrespectful in this debate. They're not going to be insulting. There's not going to be any criticism like what you would see from the hostile couple. There won't be any negativity when it comes to, like, for example, the hostile detached couple, they're going to show emotion unlike the conflict avoiders. Do you see where I'm going here? Which is why, in my opinion, I started with let me work my way from the least favorite to the most favorite, because we're able to see the difference in how they are communicating with one another, as well as how they are handling conflict with one another. The volatile couple looks like they are attacking one another, but they have learned to do so in a way where they are persuading, not pushing. And they are able to do so in a way that they are respectful of this other person throughout the conversation, while throwing in a little, a little something with humor and amusement and laughter. And in any argument, if your partner is able to show humor, research has shown that these couples will back down and listen to one another, because it diffuses, thus de-escalates the intensity of the anger in those moments, thus helping each other to really hear what the other person is saying. So in essence, when we look at the volatile couple, they have a great positive to negative ratio. So you're probably like, what does that mean? What is she talking about? All right, if you listened to the show before, I've said it numerous times. And in essence, a positive to negative ratio means whenever a couple has an argument, right, what happens, the brain will take in that conversation. And if the brain doesn't really feel as if you all are making up, or you're making up in a way that that person needs, you'll start to record and recall the negativity over the positivity. So what does that mean? Think of your brain like a file folder from the 70s and 60s, where you had this slender, tall cabinet and the drawers were stacked on top of one another. And when you pulled that drawer out, you had this long list of files from front to back, right? Like in a north and south direction, okay? And you would have, all these files stuffed in, and you would have to look for something. And if you had to find something that was in the back, you had to move through all of those files that were before it to pull out the stuff that's in the back. Well, our brain, when over time we have a lot of negativity in our relationship with our partner, what will happen is that our brain will store all of the good stuff like the back of that file cabinet, and it will put all of the good memories in the back, seeming to be to this individual that the good does not exist, because it is buried up under so many files. There's so many examples in history of bad things that have taken place. So therefore, all of the bad experiences, memories, and arguments is like opening up that file cabinet, and that's that first folder, that's the 15th folder, the 40th folder, the 80th folder, however long we can go back before we get to the back end of that file cabinet, okay? So what's happening? In these moments, we're remembering so much negative that our brain has basically shared, so to speak, through research, is what we've learned, is that for every positive to negative ratio, thus being a 5-to-1 ratio, meaning for every negative experience, thus one negative experience, you need to, in essence, bury that negative experience, meaning putting the negative in the back, bringing the positive to the forward. So for every negative experience, you need to now have 5 positive things. So here's an example. So me and Bay have an argument, and I'm really upset by what took place, what he said, and that's that, right? If we have a great history, I'll chalk that off and be like, oh, he's just having a bad day. I don't have time to deal with him and his drama, whatever. And you'll keep on pushing, right? Because I have so much good focused in my brain that's in the front of my file cabinet that I throw that little incident to the back of the cabinet not to remember it, okay? It's not really going to stay in my long-term memory. But if I have a lot of bad in this relationship, then all those bad memories are in the front of that folder, and I'm like, yeah, that's just like so-and-so said he was. Because I remember the time when he did this. And then that time that he said that. And you're able to keep pulling out file after file after file after file. Why? Because it's sitting at the front. So in order to get rid of a bad experience in a relationship, a negative experience, you have to have 5 positive things that takes place. Now, those 5 positive things can, in essence, be just about whatever you want, as long as the other person feels that it's positive. It could be a kind word. This is where it's important, y'all, to know the other person's love language, because you need to feed them that love language. It's like air, and they're depleting of their air right now. So, you have to have a 5-to-1 positive relationship. So when it comes to the volatile couple, they may have a lot of negative affect expressed, meaning that it includes anger, it includes feelings of insecurity, but they don't have any contempt. So I can feel insecure, I can feel angry, but I'm not going to be negative and nasty to you in how I express that, because I'm still going to be respectful to you. I'm still going to show integrity and incorporate some humor and some goodwill with that. And it means that when it comes to dealing with our issues, the volatile seems like they're great, but then here's where we start to move into some of the dysfunction. They have no clear boundaries around their individual worlds. And there is an enormous amount of overlap, while they have to argue a great deal about their roles in the relationship because of this enormous overlap. Or they emphasize connection and honesty in their communication, but yet there's not really any change in how they are communicating with one another. Because remember, they have this intensity of emotion. So therefore, as much as I'm in love with you and I can express that to you with great detail, lots of adjectives to describe how I love you, in the same sense, I'm going to be just as intensely emotional when I'm not feeling well. And I might do things like pouring on the waterworks or express the depth of my negative emotions, which would not necessarily be communicated the right way. Now, will they communicate their negative feelings? Yes, they most definitely will. But even with this honest communication, they have this volatile, intensely emotional way of expressing themselves, which is not always going to be positive. Okay? I know that was a big one to walk through. Okay. So now that we've walked through those 4, now let's get to the good part, right? When we're going to get to the good part. Remember that was a song. Get down to the good part. All right, here we are. We're talking about the validating couples. Doesn't that just sound nice in the name? Every other name, did you notice, automatically just ensued with negativity to know that was coming forth in a definition. Conflict avoider, volatile. Those just sound like they're not good, right? And of course, hostile and hostile detached does not sound positive. But when you hear validating couple, we know winner, this is the one that I need to be because it sounds positive. So first, let's identify what is validation. Validation is when we are having another individual to believe through our actions and our verbiage and what we have established in this relationship to be, we have a way in which this person is feeling validated. Thus, they feel loved, they feel cared for, and they feel supported. The interaction of these couples is characterized by this ease and such calm. They are somewhat expressive, but they can sometimes be neutral because validating couples are very easygoing. They get along with one another. They work hard to understand the other person's perspective. And folks, this is important. It is important for you to understand the other person's perspective. You don't have to like it, agree with it. Sometimes you don't even have to respect it, but you do need to hear them out. All right, let me give you an example. How many of us have kids, right? And they do something to tick you off and they're just totally wrong and off base, and you, oh my gosh, have to parent in that moment so that they don't take this on into their adult world causing havoc. But before you go in, right, before you go ham on them, you stop and you ask them to speak and share their thoughts and views. Guess what's happening? You're validating them even during times of discomfort and disappointment. It's evident that as a parent, you're disappointed in them. It's evident that you dislike what has taken place, but you're not so consumed with your view and your perspective that you forget to allow them to share and speak their voice. And when we allow the other person in which we have conflict to share and speak their voice, we allow them to feel supported and even understood in these moments because we're trying to gain a perspective, which is that person's point of view. That communicates empathy about this other person's feelings because you are listening to them. They are hearing that their voice matters. They are hearing that they are being understood, or at least trying to be understood by you. They hear that they are important, that even though there's this issue, they still come first. So we're communicating our feelings when we're validating, but at the same time, there's always room for growth, no matter who you are. We're communicating and we put this emphasis on supporting and understanding this other person and their feelings and being empathetic towards that. But we also have to be mindful that we have to confront these differences, right? So if I'm the parent, well, I have an authority role. I hear this person out, which helps them to over time build trust in a person to know that even when there's conflict, the relationship isn't ending. This person will still love you, even though they're upset with you. We learn this and it becomes a pattern where over time we build secure attachment. But when we're not in that authority figure in that relationship and we are equal in our partner relationship with they, then if we communicate these things, we are addressing and confronting our differences, but we have to do so on all topics, not some topics, right? And that's where some validating couples start kind of moving from the we love you, you're doing great in this area to we have some room for improvement. And that's because there are some areas that are in essence off limits that, make them feel a little bit scary. So because of that, they're sharing how they feel on some topics, but not on other topics because it may be too much or overwhelming for them. Now, this can be in essence a way that can appear to be as if there's a power struggle, going back to that authority relationship, like with a parent and a child. So we have to be very careful there. You still want to approach this conversation with ease and with calm and, of course, with compromise, but you want to make certain that you are not mildly emotionally expressive. So in essence, we want to pull something from the volatiles. The volatiles are very intensely emotional, but they're able to persuade the other person. And even though they're sticking to their point throughout the discussion, they're still showing respect and humor and goodwill towards this other person so that they can receive what they are saying. They're able to swallow it down their palate a lot easier than a big pill that's trying to go down their throat with no water. If that makes sense, okay? So these validating couples, again, they have a great positive to negative ratio. They're doing well. They are on point with their 5-to-1, but they're not always communicative about their feelings. You have to share all, not some. You don't have to go into great depth if your partner doesn't want it, but you have to be willing to be able to communicate, okay? Now, so those are the 5 types. So let's do a quick recap so we have a full understanding. Your hostile detached couple, they're basically going to snipe at one another, doing tons of conflict. And although the air is speaking emotional detachment and resignation, the person isn't physically going anywhere. But over time, because you are not communicating healthfully, you will actually end the relationship or ensue in a divorce because you just can't endure that for an extended period of time without any relief or change. The hostile couple is not as intense as the hostile detached, but yet they still don't communicate their feelings in a positive way either. They're very defensive and they never really allow the other person to try to hear what they're saying because we're so focused on ourselves. And then on top of that, we're being very critical towards this other person, and sometimes even whining. Now, when we get to the conflict avoiding couple, they're good because, they seem to be getting along well, thus being generally happy. But the bad thing is they're not really expressing their needs. So the relationship cannot be ultimately fulfilling because they're avoiding conflict, not wanting to rock the boat, thus avoiding expressing anything they may need from the other person that may not be easily or readily accessible or able to be fulfilled. So instead of disappointing myself, I just won't even ask for it. Instead of asking for this and possibly getting into an argument, let me just keep things floating and going the way that they are, pretty good and happy, and I can go along with that. But 50% happiness over time is not going to be enough. We're always going to want to experience better if we believe it's out there, but we can't achieve it if we don't try for it. And that's where they have errors. They do not express their needs. And then, of course, we talked about the volatile couples, where these couples look real passionate towards one another. Yes, they're the couple that has their hands all over one another. PDA is on full display. They are totally in love with one another, and they are great at expressing that love. But because they are so intensely emotional, they do the same with their negative feelings. So even though they can communicate their negative feelings, they have to be careful because they love to debate and argue. Even though they're not disrespectful or insulting, it's just the fact that they have to be careful because a lot of the times they're arguing about their roles because there's this enormous overlap. And they have to look at how they're going to address that. And in essence, they're emphasizing connection and honesty in their communication, but they're not addressing the real issue. And then the final couple is the validating couple, which is what we all should be striving for, where we are communicating feelings. We're doing it in a neutral way where we're characterizing ease and calm, but in the same sense, we are supporting and being understanding of this other person, but we're not communicating all of our feelings. So if there's one piece to fix in the validating couple, it would simply be to communicate all your feelings, not some. If we were to fix the volatile couple, then the thing that we would need to do is, even though you can communicate your negative feelings, you now have to actually talk about your roles and deal with them because the overlap is going to be problematic and this will be your routine unless you change that. Conflict avoiders, it's pretty simple. Stop avoiding the conflict because you're not addressing what it is that you truly desire. And if you have a need that really needs to be expressed and fulfilled, you gotta talk about it. So we have to learn how to open it up, okay? And so when we get to the hostile couples, I think it doesn't matter whether it's the hostile or the hostile detached. In my opinion, the same message needs to ring clear. We have to find better ways of communicating. If I'm hostile and I'm doing everything I can to dismiss you, be defensive, and attack you, where am I getting with that? You're still not hearing me. So I might feel better in the moment. It might feel good in the moment to get that word out or, to snap back, but I'm still probably upset in bed by myself, or, your husband is sleeping on the couch, or, we're not getting along. That's still, I'm not winning. So that's not helpful. The couple that is hostile detached, we're really griping at one another and it's not healthy, but I'm still not expressing my feelings there either because I don't know how. So I need to learn how, but I need to be able to communicate to you in a way that says, hey, let's stop this cycle. It isn't working. Both of these couples have to communicate what's really going on and address the issue. Every couple has to address the issue is what we're getting at. So I've explained the 5 types. I've explained the good as well as the bad within these 5 types. And then finally, I've walked through very briefly because each situation could change depending on the individuals, their attachment style. If we look at the hostile detached couple, you have a pursuer draw effect where one person is engaged in the conversation, the other person is shutting down. The hostile couple, you have two people that are pursuers where we're both going at one another. It's like a tennis match. Ball's over here in your court, now it's in mine. I say something, now I throw it back in your court. And it's going back and forth like that where no one backs down, but no one is really saying anything either. And then, we have our conflict avoiders. What does that sound like? We're both avoiding one another. We're both withdrawers because we don't want to deal with the thing that is the issue. So we pull away from it. And then the volatile couples, they're going on the attack mode where they are actually both in conversation with one another. But the good thing, like I said, is they're not negative. Your validating couples, they have a good, healthy balance where they are able to communicate. They just need to be able to feel free enough to share. Okay. So I kind of quickly walked through all of that. That's a lot to get in this one episode. But I think I did pretty well. I think you have a good understanding as to what these couple types are, what they look like, how they communicate. And like I said, what are the good things that they do and what are the things that will end on a positive note, things that they need to do to improve within the relationship. All right. So those are your 5 couple types. Are you able to see yourselves? Do you see people that you know? All right. Don't go out there diagnosing people, but it is a good indication to let you know how a person communicates. So when people that I am having consultations with, when they're expressing to me that they need help with communication is very broad. And, I always have to ask them, well, when you say communication, what exactly do you mean? Because this is one element of communication. It's taking place. It's not good, but it is taking place to some degree. So we have to figure out what is my couple type, because it's going to help you to see how you are aiding to the greatness in your relationship or how you are aiding to its possible demise. Don't be on the latter end, folks. You want to do well so that you can experience the best and the most from life and love with your partner. All right? Okay. Well, that is it for today's episode. I hope I was able to shed some light on what is your couple type so that you can see yourself and how you communicate so that you can know, in essence, what does your future look like if you do not change these things, or at least do your part to improve upon them in your relationship with Bay. So with that being said, you know how I like to close out the show. But before I do, don't forget, I send out weekly words of encouragement, support, as well as love and resources and my weekly text message. So if you are single and you're interested on jumping on board with getting these weekly texts where I'll show up in the text itself, or I will send a video of some encouragement, or I might pop up myself with a lovely message in the video. Either way, I deposit into you weekly. It's just something that I enjoy doing because so many hours you can sit on a couch with a client, but there's more to do outside of the therapy room and, of course, off the couch. So I hope you get a chance. If you're interested and you would like to be on that call list, all you need to do is text the word, if you are single and you want to solely have encouragement as you as a woman. You don't have to be single, but I'm just letting you know it has nothing to do with relationships in this aspect. So all of you that are interested in looking at self-love and encouragement, then you would text the word, all caps, no spaces. You would text the word, no dessert, and you would text that to the following number, 1-877-7-LOVE-07. So that's 1-877-7-LOVE-07. Now, if you are in a relationship, engaged or married, and you would like to have that same thing happen, but with a different twist that pertains only to the relationships and giving you inside tips, encouragement, support, challenges, and things of that nature that are all geared towards love and relationship, then you're going to text the word date night, and date night is spelled a little bit differently. I want you to use all caps, and you're going to type DATE NITE, no spaces. So date night is one word, DATENITE, and you'll text that to the same number, 1-877-7LOVE-07, 1-877-7LOVE-07. I hope you all get a chance to join us. Our lovely little group is growing. I'm excited. It's nice that, you all sometimes will respond back, and I'll be able to see how helpful it has been. Love you guys, and I hope I get a chance to see more of you, which will hopefully be at the Black and Bling upcoming event on October the 22nd. That being said, you know how we like to close out the show. I'm going to end with my like it, love it, leave it tips. And I would say that my like it tip for the couple types, I like the fact that we have a blueprint for what to steer away from and what to move towards. We have an opportunity to see, at a snapshot where we are with our relationship as well as where we would like to be. And I think the examples that I provided with these 5 types and what's good and what's bad can give you an indication as to where you are within that spectrum of your own relationship, so you know exactly what you need to do to head into the direction that you want, or at least giving you insight as to tell you where you are, so you may know what the next steps would be so that you and your partner can head in the right direction together. Now, what would my love it tip be? I think I just love the fact that things do not have to be finite. Just because it's one way today does not mean it will necessarily be that way tomorrow. And that could be good and bad. Things are going well in my relationship today. If I want that next year, well, I just can't sit on my laurels today. I continue to do the things that make it great today. I do those every day. One of my friends, I love the fact that no matter what holiday comes around, she will always say, yes, I'm getting a gift for this day, but this day does not evidence my love for you. I show my love every other day. This is just the cherry on top to acknowledge and respect and honor my partner on this day. So when we're thinking about love and all the things that we're doing great, we're not just doing it on special occasions, we're doing it all the time, because we always need to feel validated, thus loved, cared for, and supported. And I love the fact that if our relationship is going well and we continue to do the work, then it will continue to go well, if that's what both partners want. But I also love the fact that if the relationship is not going well and we know what's wrong and we've made a decision to change, then we can turn that negative into a positive and head in the right direction where we are desiring to go. And what would I leave out? I think with the 5 types, there is negative in each aspect, because, there's no one perfect thing. But when it comes to what would I leave out, if you are a hostile couple or a hostile detached couple, doesn't mean that you have to be like that. You can leave that out of your relationship. You can leave out that high level of defensiveness. You can do away with the criticism towards your partner and identifying all their wrongs or identifying all of their flaws. If you're the hostile detached couple, you can totally rid yourself of all of the negativity that is displayed during your times of conflict. You don't have to be that way. Is that person making you that way? Or are you responding in a way because you are hurt and you feel that will do what it takes to hurt them back? You don't need or have to be that person. And I'm quite certain you don't want to be. So why not be a person who is giving and experiencing the best from love? But in order to do that, you have to give love. You can't give hate. And you most definitely can't give fear. That won't get what you want from love. So I would say leave all of that out. Just totally do away with hostile, detached, and hostile couples. Yeah, sure. Volatiles aren't exactly the best either. And of course, you shouldn't be a conflict avoider. But if I'm leaving out anything, let's leave out those 2 since they promote the most negativity. All right. So those are my like it, love it, leave it tips. You know how we close out the show. Don't forget to rate and review us wherever you've downloaded. We really do like to hear from you. In fact, go on over to the Apple store where you downloaded this podcast. And then from there, type in something nice or something that you want to hear. It's our 5th and final year, guys. We want to hear from you because, like I said, in 2023, I told you the world is open and we are coming to a place near you. You've heard my voice for a number of years now, in actuality, 5 years, and it's time for me to start hearing from you and seeing from you. A lot of great things are in store. I told you that we have the Date Night app that is being prepared at this very moment. I'm so excited but nervous at the same time because soon it will be out in the world for you to experience. So therefore you get the date night experience where you have pretty much a wingman in your pocket to guide you through a date night experience, thus drawing you and your partner closer, communicating healthily, expressing your emotions healthily to someone that you love and care about. All of that's coming. Live events are coming. Then I have one last thing that I'm going to announce, but I'm going to save that for later. With that being said, that's it for today's show. I've enjoyed you as always, and I'm your host, Dr. Sadia, helping you to give and receive the love you both want and need. Till next time, everyone, be blessed, and come on out to the Black and Bling BYOB event on October the 22nd. We will see you there. Have a great night, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.